Hey, what is up, guys? Evan Aldo here on this beautiful Friday night in South Florida. Crazy times we're getting into, crazy times, inflation, there are a lot of things happening. It's really, the point with the stock market, let's talk about the stock market first. We're either gonna enter a recession here or somehow miraculously, come back up. The Fed is panicking. They don't know what to do. They originally said, inflation is transitory. It doesn't. You probably don't need to be a genius to realize that printing insane amounts of money will lessen the value of the dollar. Now the goal is just raise interest rates like crazy to combat it. And you could tank the stock market a little bit with that. Doesn't seem to be working for oil too much. Doesn't seem to be working for, it seems the stock market follows real estate now, and Bitcoin last, I don't know how many years, follows stock market all three follow one another relatively well now, at least to a certain extent, not always. But, looks like it's gonna rain outside, but they could keep, you raise interest rates, you keep market down, keep these things down, but you're not suppressing oil, you're not suppressing the value of used cars. I bought a car a couple months ago, MSRP was like 51, 52K, now it's like 55. The dealership wants to buy it back for me so I can make a couple grand off of it. What? Yeah, those are the times we're living in. And obviously, the Bitcoiners right now are a little bit probably red in the face, a little bit annoyed, a little bit, doubting themselves because why isn't Bitcoin coming up? Why isn't that coming up? Because it's a more, risky asset, I guess, at this time. Gold's starting to come up now. This could be the time. I was talking about it earlier in my video today. I want to talk about some other stuff, more aside from the market in this vlog as well. But, this could be finally the time where Bitcoin starts to shoot up. As the market keeps going down, if we do enter a recession, really the main thing with the market, if we go under 350 for the SPY, let's say, and I think at that point Bitcoin could start to recover pretty well, for a nice bottom there in a few months while the SPY continues downward. We'll see what happens. Hard to say exactly, but yeah. I was reading a lot of started reading Ray Dalio's new book, Principles for a New World Order, something along those lines, I believe is the title. I forget it exactly. I think that's the title though. And, he talks about a lot of things, people, there's always the panic of a depression. There's the panic of World War III. And these things definitely are more likely now with, amounts of debt that America's in, changing, the empire ending. There's a lot of signs of that. Yeah, a lot of signs. If it's going to happen anytime relatively soon, it's probably going to happen now, within the next year or something, at least the beginning of it. We have Russia, we have China, we have China being potentially the next big world power. But the main thing, one of the big things with that is, and there are people prepping, there's always people like that, but the main thing is in all of these instances, in changing world orders, all of this, the majority of people end up okay. The majority of people end up all right. The majority of people don't starve. The majority of people are okay at the end of the day, that's a really good thing, especially, in changing times. Looking at it more, somebody like Ray Dalio, he talks a lot about, and these are things you can learn in the book, Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. It's my favorite book on trading, by the way. And, Ray Dalio talks a lot about like how he risked everything to bet that in the 1980s there would be a depression. And, obviously he lost everything, was completely broke, had to borrow money from his parents. Wow. And, he was deciding kind of, should I go back to a normal job at that point? I just lost that. Maybe this isn't for me doing a hedge fund. I just lost everything betting, that there was going to be a depression, and then it's the most prosperous time in American history. Maybe that's not for me. But yeah, it's mistakes. The more you mess up, the better you get at something. And, you know, that quote that Tony Robbins, you know, originally said, when you fail, when you succeed, you party, when you fail, you ponder, and all the success comes out of pondering, something along those lines. A lot of thinking out of that if you mess up that badly, and then you learn from that. And I mean, basically, Ray Dalio, he made that conclusion there would be a depression based on history, but he was looking at the wrong part of history or whatever. Now he knows. Usually, like, people, he was talking about how, you know, a lot of people thought, you know, in the 1950s, in the early 1950s, they came back from the war, the economy did very good, they started making money, but they were afraid to put it into the market because they thought there would be a repeat of what happened in recent history. No, it went up, and they missed out on a lot of that. I think the same thing kind of happened post 08. People thought it would be a repeat of that much earlier. You know, I remember, I was young, but I mean, I remember in 2011, 2010, people, they thought the market was going to crash, and now they're back down to those levels, and they're 50%. There's a ton of fear. People thought history would repeat, but it doesn't repeat in recent times. You got to look back a lot. You got to look farther back to really see what's going to happen. And even then, nobody knows at the end of the day. Like, there's no exact way to know. It's all a risk management game. You know, if there's an exact way to know, I mean, you could bet the farm on one thing and maybe you'll win. You know, maybe, I don't usually, any strategy I know of, I mean, it's hard to have above an 80 or 90% win rate, but I mean, maybe 9 out of 10 times you'll win, but that other, maybe 8 out of 10 times there would have been a Great Depression in the 80s or whatever. It would have went into depression. Ray Dalio would have went, you know, to the moon with all his money. It would have became worth $20 billion back then, like he's worth today. But those 2 out of 10 times didn't work out. So that's the good thing with risk management. You got to have that risk versus reward there. And, you know, it's all a gradual process, you know, day trading, long-term investing, scalp trading, I do it all. And, you know, it's consistent gains over a long period of time. You're never going to be right 100% of the time, but if you have a strategy where you could get it right more than half of the time, or even some ways, I mean, even less than half of the time, if you really ride the trade up a lot, you can do very well. You know, it comes into a lot of attraction too. You know, a lot of people wouldn't expect, you know, they're not used to being able to make money just clicking a few buttons on a screen, really. They're not used to that. You know, that's not the way they were raised. So it's your belief system, your subconscious. A lot of people self-sabotage themselves. You know, a lot of people act on emotions. So you got to be stoic and you got to think in the present moment. Another thing I learned from Ray Dalio, you know, I was watching more of his YouTube videos and stuff, and he's getting more into the social media, kind of like